Curvenote and in the SciPy Proceedings committee is like understanding that science is these days, especially in like the scientific Python world, is full of interaction and computation and all of these cool things that people make during their research. But there's still this like unfortunate caricature of how science is consumed, which is just through static PDFs. And so SciPy and Curvenote have partnered together to try and improve this and make it so SciPy is embracing all of the amazing things that people can do in Python and the interaction and computation that people can have in their research, that they use in their research, and actually connecting that cool stuff to their publication. And we started this, we first partnered with them last year, and that was really successful. We just have a huge pile of papers now on the web in the 2024 proceedings. Nice. So then some of the things that I'm talking about here with what we're doing that isn't just a PDF, we approach all of our publications as web-first articles because most people read papers on their computers or on their phones, and so making them mobile-friendly and browser-friendly is more important than having a nicely formatted PDF for us. Then with this, there's all sorts of little things we can do, like we can have these hover previews so you can see figures in line. Figure references can actually just pop up and show the figures in line, and same with abbreviations and citations. For some code stuff, you can link directly to GitHub code and issues and pull requests. So I think that's really useful in SciPy, where pretty much all publications will also have Python code associated with them. And then there's other like kind of basic web stuff, dark mode, and little buttons to just copy code out of papers. We also are able to use Jupyter notebooks. And so this lets you directly embed Jupyter Notebook outputs in your publication. So if you spend a bunch of time building a nice little widget to analyze your data, you can actually just make that part of your publication. And you can even go a step further, and you can author your entire publication in a notebook. So you can have like a narrative notebook with markdown cells and code and outputs, and then have your conclusion at the end. And you can just directly publish that notebook if you want. And so then that leads to, this is a different journal that Curvenote does, but it just leads to this really nice web-first thing where you can click through, see all the metadata. You can read your paper, and then inside that paper you can find all these pop-ups equations. You can have this little Jupyter widget that you can then turn on and actually connect to a kernel, allowing readers to explore your data. And then that's tied directly back to the notebook, so you can like click through, and the notebook will also get published along with your paper. Okay, and all that said, we still make PDFs because there's still people who like PDFs. And so with your publication, in addition to having it published online on the Proceedings website, you'll also get a PDF created. And that's using Typist, which is a modern alternative to LaTeX, and it's a bit faster. Great. So now I'm going to step into the workflow of what you're actually going to be doing as an author. So all of the authoring uses MyST, which is an open source project. And it consists of a markup language, so it's like the actual text document you write in. It's also a specification. So this text gets parsed and turns into structured data. And so that specification is a MyST specification. And it's also a set of open source tools that you're using to take your MyST markup that you authored and turn it into a website. This kind of shows that idea. So the MyST Markdown, the source can be, that Markdown, or it can also be a notebook. And this shows that you can export from a single source to websites and journals. You can also use that same source to export to templates. And for those, we'll be doing PDFs, but there's also Word and LaTeX templates. And that all uses the same underlying machine readable structured data, which is both like the front matter, like authors and affiliations, and also your entire paper is machine readable structured content. Getting into Markdown a little bit. So MyST Markdown is an extension of Common Mark, which is the basic Markdown that if you've written in Markdown at all, like if you've written in GitHub comments and made something bold, that's just basic Common Mark. And so these sorts of things are Common Mark. There's little headings, underscores to make things italic, bullet points, quotes, equations in line. This is kind of similar to using equations in LaTeX. And then that gives you these sorts of things. You have your bullets, your headings, your quotes. Where Common Mark doesn't quite live up to what we need in scientific publishing is when it comes to like figures and citations. So in here you have an image and you have like a little italicized figure caption, but then like this thing, the C figure 1, that's just text. Yeah, and so those give you something that looks okay, but it's not, I don't know, we do better in MyST Markdown. So in MyST Markdown, we have these little directives, which if you're coming from like a Python documentation background, you might have seen similar things in restructured text, but these give you little environments to do certain things. So this one's a little math environment that you can then label. You can do math in line. This is rather than having an image, you can actually use a figure directive and give it your image. You can give it a name with a caption. You can give it like alt text in here. And then you can reference these directly in the text with just simple syntax. You can just say at and then use the little ID or label or name that you give in the figures. And so here you can reference this figure. You could also reference this equation in the same way. And same with citations. If you have a bibtec file, you can reference entries in your bibtec file, or you can directly put a link to a DOI in line, and MyST will resolve that into a citation. And then that gets you something that looks like this. So now we have a nice figure. The link to the figure becomes a cross-reference. The citation becomes a little hover reference that you can see more, and it's nice and interactive, and yeah, it just makes it easier to read, and you don't have to pop around as much. Like when you need to go see figure 2, it just appears in line for you. Cool. So to actually write in MyST, you need to install the MyST command line tool, which you can just pip install mystmd, and then you also need to install Node.js, and hopefully the instructions for that you can find online and figure out. That's just because the MyST tools run on JavaScript under the hood, so you need a different runtime to make them work. The first step then, the second step I guess, after you install those tools is to fork the SciPy Proceedings GitHub repository. So all of the authoring and submitting papers and reviewing happens in GitHub. So if you don't have a GitHub account, you'll need a GitHub account. And if you, and then you'll need to fork this and get your own copy of SciPy Proceedings. In there, you'll find a couple templates. So there's an existing MyST Markdown template with this main.md Markdown file in it. And then there's a tech template if you prefer LaTeX. And then in each of these folders, there's some images. There's a bibtec file, which is just a standard bibtec file that you can export from a reference manager, and MyST YAML, which includes a lot of the metadata you need with authors and abbreviations and that kind of thing. So you need to pick what way you're authoring. And we recommend Markdown because MyST Markdown the tools are made to work best with Markdown. But if you're a LaTeX person and you really like LaTeX, then you're welcome to use the LaTeX template. This is just showing a bit what's in the MyST YAML file. So this has your ID. You'll need to update this ID. There's going to be a little comment in here when you copy the folder. When you copy the template folder to your own folder, you can just follow this little comment to change the ID to something with your name in it instead. Title, subtitle, update the authors. You need to make sure you have a corresponding author with an email. And keywords are nice, abbreviations are nice, affiliations, all that good stuff. ORCIDs are great. We like unique identifiers, and that lets authors identify themselves uniquely across anything that they author. You can create an ORCID for yourself if you don't have one yet. Cool. And then once you are ready to write, you can go into your author folder and you can run MyST start, which you installed previously with pip install mystmd. And that will run a browser window that will give you an instant preview of your paper as you author. And so then you can just make changes and watch it update as you go. Cool. So I'm going to try to step out of PowerPoint mode now and just show a tiny demo of that, which the little animations showed. But yeah, here we go. So I've already forked the repository into my own FWKOCH GitHub, and it's local, and so I need to copy this folder. I want to use a MyST template. So let's see, let's see if this works. MyST template copy, does that have everything in it? Amazing. And so now I'm going to rename this to Franklin_KOCH, because that is what the instructions recommend. Folder should be first name, last name. That's a little bit flexible. If you'd rather, if you're writing as an organization or something, you can do something else, but it needs to be unique to yourself. Okay, great. And before I do too much more here, I'm going to do what I said. So I'm going to change into this new directory I just made, and I'm going to do MyST start. And so that has a couple warnings and stuff, but that's okay. And then if we refresh over here, so this is now a live preview of my paper, of the template paper for now. Cool. And so let's just make a few changes. I'm not going to go through a ton here, but like, okay, we don't want Caesar to be the first author. That seems a little bit silly. So I'm going to make myself the first author and put in my email. And if I save this, then it should, look at that. So it updated and there's me. It still has some nonsense affiliations there. I don't really want those. So we can just make this Curvenote maybe. And we can also maybe make it SciPy Proceedings. Nice. And then my ORCID, got this all prepped so I could put in my correct ORCID just to set a good example. Let's see. Put that in here. And then let's delete all these other silly authors. Great. And there we go. I'm the corresponding author with my little email address. Maybe we can also add Steve here, just for the sake of having someone else. Maybe I'll spell my name right. And then put in Steve. And he doesn't need an email. I don't know his ORCID, and he's only Curvenote. There we go. Look at that. And we'll save again. Anyway, cool. That's yeah, we won't go too far in there. Maybe we'll add one more thing here to the metadata. So we have this nice like MyST abbreviation here, but maybe I don't know what CLI is. It would be nice to not assume that people know what CLI is. So let's just say that's command line interface. Great. And now that gives you a little hover preview of that abbreviation. And then of course, all right, we can go in to our actual text and we can make some changes. Let's save that quick and we can see that appear. Wonderful. Then one more thing. Let's maybe reference our figure, one of our figures. I think it's, well, we'll make sure we call it the right thing. So if we scroll down, we can scroll down here in our preview. Figure 1. Okay, let's see what figure 1, the label is for figure 1. If we find it in here. Nice. All this good stuff. I don't know. The template is set up to have a lot of different example types of content. This is the caption. So this guy is labeled fig stream. So we'll go ahead and put in a cross-reference there and save that. And then if we go back to the top here, we can see this little cross-reference there, which does the hover thing that I showed in my animations. Nice. So that's kind of the idea there. And of course, if you're authoring your own paper, then you'll just be deleting all this and writing from scratch. Cool. I think I'm going to go back in over here for now. So yeah, just to talk a tiny bit about LaTeX. So MyST only has support for very basic packages and no custom libraries. So if you're a LaTeX power user, you'll probably be pretty disappointed, and there will probably be things that you like that don't work. So like basic LaTeX is good. Complex LaTeX, importing a bunch of macros, you might have trouble with. And it's also worth noting the PDF will still be built from MyST, not from LaTeX. So writing in LaTeX doesn't really like give you any advantages for formatting the PDF how you want. That still happens after the fact from MyST. Jupyter Notebooks, on the other hand, we would really encourage you, actually, if you are interested in submitting a Jupyter Notebook as your manuscript or as supplementary material, to do that. We didn't do that for the proceedings last year because we were just getting started and just kind of seeing how this whole process went. And so we were keeping the complexity a little lower. But this year, we really want to start showing off what the publication can look like when we have interactive figures, and even executable environments we can get set up so people can run your notebook if you feel like that's appropriate for your manuscript. Yeah, so this is great. And so if you are using a notebook, just contact us and we'd love to help you, and we'll help you make it work. It still is pretty much the same as in MyST. You just have your files in that folder. Instead of a Markdown file, you'll have a notebook, or along with your Markdown file, you can have a notebook. But yeah, we'll help you on a case-by-case basis just to make sure all of your cool stuff works. Nice. So this is moving on to, once the authoring is complete, how you actually submit it. So from your forked repository, you should push all your changes. Hopefully you're happy with how your paper looks running it locally in your little preview. And then you can open a pull request to the SciPy conference, SciPy Proceedings repository. Nice. And so then this will have GitHub actions that are run on it. And so these GitHub actions, they'll run some automated checks, which show up here. So these kind of check your content to make sure some basic things, like you have an abstract, you have authors, you have a corresponding author. If you didn't make an ORCID, then you'll get a little warning that says it would be nice if you had an ORCID, but this is just an optional check. There will be checks that run to make sure your citations have DOIs wherever possible. Great. And then along with those checks, so this little comment, once the GitHub actions are running on your pull request, this little comment will appear, and you'll be able to look at the checks. You'll also be able to go to this little preview inspect link, which will take you here, and you can see kind of the metadata for your paper, as well as a preview link, which will take you actually to your paper. And this should look just like, if you're using MyST locally, this should look just like your little preview build locally, but it's actually on the SciPy submissions portal. And this is another opportunity for you to go through and check and make sure that the HTML looks how you want. There also should be a PDF created, so you can, if you look over at the download PDF link, if that's not there, then that's a problem. And you should raise that in your pull request. And if it is there, you can take a look at the PDF and see how it looks. And if you're not happy with the formatting of your PDF, then there's some customization that we can help you with to get it a little bit more in line of how you want it to look. But I think like we're most concerned with the HTML. We see the HTML website as the source of truth of your publication, and the PDF is just a thing to be shared if someone desperately needs a PDF. Cool. So I think this is pretty important. I mean, we'll be keeping an eye on all the PRs that come into the SciPy Proceedings repository. But if you have a specific question, you can tag the Proceedings committee using this group. And if you've opened a PR, you can just tag us in your PR. If you haven't opened a PR yet, feel free to open an issue and ask whatever question you have. And hopefully I don't know, there's a few of us on there who will be able to get back to you hopefully pretty quickly and help you with whatever problems you have, whether that's your PDF not building or you want help with getting your notebook to work or whatever else. Nice. Just getting pretty close to the end here. Peer review happens on GitHub as pull request reviews. And all of this is totally in the open, so everyone knows who their reviewers are and the reviewers know who they're reviewing. The content that the reviewers have access to is exactly what's available on that preview site that you're looking at. So that's what they're reviewing. They're looking at the preview site and then they're making comments in line in a pull request review. And so this is, we think this is nice. The proceedings are a totally open process. And so doing it all in the open on GitHub kind of holds us to that. And it makes it easier so you can, reviewers can even suggest changes and you can add those in and you can converse with your reviewers and iterate on things. Less formal than a lot of sort of journal review processes. And every time you push a new commit to your pull request, the preview will rebuild and the checks will rerun. And so you'll always get the latest version when you go to those places. Nice. And then once the reviewer is happy with it, then it'll be accepted and we will make you a DOI and we'll update the proceedings site with your paper. And everyone will give lots of digital pats on the backs. Yeah, cool. So I think that's kind of the overview. I'm hoping there are lots of questions. So maybe we can get into that now.
But yeah, feel free to unmute for a second, and if you've got a question you want to ask. Otherwise, like I say, just type your question in the chat. Thanks for the run through, Franklin.
Yeah, of course.
Hello, Franklin.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I just wanted to ask you that what's the best email address or contact number to reach out to you? I have several questions that I would like to follow up on.
Yeah, I can send you my email if you want to, if you're wanting to ask questions, not on
Yeah,
recording and not on the open source in GitHub. I think the best way in general to get help and get feedback is to you can tag me on GitHub in an issue.
Okay.
Or the proceedings committee on GitHub on an issue. But if you're concerned about doing that, I can send you my email. I think you maybe sent me a message in chat.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That'll be nice.
One question: Are you going to share the deck somewhere, Franklin? Where are we going to put the slides somewhere? We can do. We also have the video link, which I just posted in chat, and that will get you to the live stream of the webinar.
Yeah, and we can probably put the slide deck in the comment on the YouTube. That seems like it makes the most sense to me. Totally. That way they're in the same place and you just need the one link to find them.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Great. Where can I download the sample paper on MyST What do you mean by that, Nico? As in terms of you want some sample content? If that's the case, then if we can go back to the content that Franklin showed, that would actually be the proceedings GitHub repository. Correct?
Yeah. So I think what I was showing was just SciPy Proceedings was just this one. So this is where the templates are. I think if you want information about MyST, then this website is pretty good, and like the search functionality is quite good for like specific features if you have questions about how to author.
Great, hopefully that answers that question. What are the SciPy deadlines and recommendations about submission length?
So let's see. The deadlines are in the README here. Right now, the deadline is set up. So today is May 9th webinar. And so this is saying that June 6th is the deadline to submit the first draft. Guidelines for length.
What's the check set to? Is there a total word count?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Let's take a look at one of these. Let's see. I was doing a test submission, so maybe we can look at the checks here, see if there's a word count here on the checks that passed.
Word count.
Word count. So let's see what this says. Document is a good length. Okay. Well, we can figure out what that's set to.
Yeah. We'll find out. Is there a hard threshold?
Yeah, I don't think there's really a hard threshold. Like, I think probably it would be best to just look through the like the last year's proceedings and kind of just get a feel for how long they are. Yeah, I think that, I mean, there's no like page count threshold or anything like that because it's all just online. So I think it's just a matter of like what you need to tell your story and like keeping in mind that the people doing reviews are going to do a better review if there's less content to review, I guess.
Yeah.
So I think the kind of qualitative limits are more important than any specific quantitative limit.
And the same on number of pictures or number of authors. I think you'll see, if you look back on the proceedings, you'll see a whole spectrum from single author papers up to papers with like 10 authors in some cases. The link that you show with the deadlines, could we share it in chat?
Yeah. Just go back here. Okay. Well, this is the README directly. Chat. Cool. And I think, I think getting a PR open by that first deadline is the most important thing. Since it's an iterative process, then like kind of you can continue to iterate as you go.
Yeah, the first draft. And I remember last year there was definitely sort of edits and improvements ongoing.
Yeah. Yeah, but I guess there's like reviewer assignment and stuff, and so knowing the number of submissions coming in and kind of the extent of them is what we really need to know.
Great. Any more questions? Anyone?
I have a quick follow-up. Just wanted to know that if so our proposal for tutorial got accepted. So for those who are doing presentations on tutorials and workshops, for those, do you think we need to also do this abstract submission through proceedings, or is this just for those publishing through?
This is totally separate from giving a tutorial or giving a talk or doing a poster. It's optional. Everyone who's accepted to do those has the option of getting this publication out of it and getting a DOI for it, and just having something that they can share that is published to SciPy. But it's totally optional and totally separate.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah,
question. Sorry, go ahead.
yes. Just I'm kind of curious since this is a solution for publishing online first interactive papers. And how does the space looks like? Is this the only solution that is open source? Are there other solutions that journals are looking forward? I'm kind of curious to just hear from you guys because I guess that you have been on this space for a bit. What is your perspective of how this looks? Are people converging on solutions? Is it like every journal or every documentation that is interactive is a very fragmented space? How do things look like?
I think that I don't know. Steve can answer too, but I'll start.
I think we're hoping it's
Yeah,
getting less
yeah. I mean, I think
fragmented. I think one one of the things that we've been focusing on is by using MyST, which is an evolution of JupyterBook, and by aligning the sort of publishing system very closely with Jupyter and
yeah,
those standards, then we've got an opportunity to have a system that isn't as fragmented and is well supported and can be sort of adopted more widely. And I think JupyterBook already has a lot of books published. And with the sort of new version of JupyterBook, which is MyST, that's also sort of being geared up to now publish articles. So I think there's a chance to sort of converge around a tool
yeah.
like MyST.
And so then I think so there's that missed having support of the Jupyter project, which I feel like helps build momentum and convergence. And then with that, the metadata that MIST publishes makes it so that if you're publishing in MIST, like all of your figures are available as structured data, and so another paper can link directly to your figure, and the like hover pop-ups, they can be cross MIST anything, like as long as you set up the link to another MIST project, then it'll find the structured data and you'll be able to have that figure pop up from another paper. And so there's this like, I don't know, the momentum of like having this interconnected web of scientific publication that hopefully will help bring that together. I think specifically like Curvenote as the publisher, like I don't know, where if MIST can get the uptake and get like the MIST ecosystem of authoring and creating this interconnected science, then we feel like that's a success.
Yeah. I think some of the interactive things previously have been like individual projects that tried to do something and then they went so far and then they sort of went away or funding went away. And with MIST, there's the opportunity for like it to run on the infrastructure like Curvenote does, for it to run statically, for it to be published in many different ways. So it's got a chance to be around a lot more. In terms of like creating individual websites and interactive websites, I guess Quarto's the other one alongside MIST. I think the thing with MIST is it's really geared up for cross-referencing and publishing and scientific publishing rather than just for creating websites. Yeah. Anyway, there's lots to be discussed down there that could be discussed as well another time. But hopefully that answers part of the question.
Yeah, thanks a lot. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe a small follow-up if nobody has other question is a second part of providing these papers is the interactive part, and that comes with the problem of having to serve computations and to store the data. Is that something that Curvenote also handles, so that's a separate layer of the problem? How are you thinking about it, guys?
Some parts of the interactivity can be without compute. Bokeh. So if you think about like some bokeh plots, some plotly, some altair, also some JavaScript widgets can just slot straight in. Where you do need to, when you do start to do Jupyter widgets that need a server, we do provide binders for venues like SciPy, and that's like as Franklin was saying, if people want to do notebooks, that's a like get in touch and figure out what you're trying to do, and also the sort of proceedings committee would get involved a bit there. But it can also run against public binders as well, and the public MyBinder. But in this instance, we would be providing the compute for it, and it would just work.
And I think in terms of like huge data storage and like intense computational resources, like I don't know, for HPC sort of stuff, Curvenote doesn't do that. So that would be us helping you use our tools to like build widgets that can connect back to your data if you want, or figuring out other ways to create a publication out of your data. That doesn't need those directly in the publication.
Yeah. Cool. So just some questions. Are we to assume we're only copying the 2025 branch when forking the GitHub repo?
Yes, that would be good. If you copy the whole thing, you will get a lot. So just the one branch is great.
Yes, that's great. That's correct, Nick. And as Nick sort of showed in the chat there's a specific checkbox for that when you create your fork.
Perfect. Yep.
Cool. Also, Kedar, thanks. At most 6,000 words.
Amazing.
About 8 pages in a PDF.
Cool. So that's like good guidance. I think if you make it an extra word or something, you can sort it out.
And I think sorry.
No. Go ahead.
Yeah. And I think just back on the notebooks, just to like reiterate, if somebody does want to go that direction, put in your submission, and then can sort of work with you on it. The aim of the interactivity in the papers, I would say, is to provide an interactive way to help people, say, explore results or better communicate what you're doing, not necessarily run simulations or actually run experiments or things like that. It's more aimed at the question is what interactivity can go into the paper to help communicate.
Yeah, it's a complicated thing because it's nice to give authors freedom, but it's also nice to be forced to just make a single picture to tell your story. And so the more work you put into making a nice interactive thing where people can explore your results, the more people get out of it. I get there's also another note. So the MyST template is built around just a single file in here. If you have other like supplementary notebooks or supplementary Markdown files, if you throw them into this folder, then they should just like build as part of your website. And so that's also an option. Like if you have a notebook that you want to publish along with your article, you could just include that alongside a Markdown article. I don't know if that is helpful for anyone, then that's a possibility.
And if that notebook is executed, when you save it, then all the outputs will also sort of come through and be visible.
Yeah.
And then you can sort of, if you like, define a table of contents, and that gives you control over the layout a bit more. And like Franklin showed, the mystmd.org website is full of like examples and explains how to sort of build up that web-based article.
Yeah, that point is very interesting that you want to give the authors freedom, but you also want them to think on a way to compress whatever visualization or interactivity widget in order for them to like convey the message. And those are attention. And yeah, I can see like some sort of vision of the space between a paper that presents an idea, a notebook that reproduces a very important result, and the kind of thing that Sphinx Gallery does, which is, I guess, is adding interactive tutorials for libraries. And I can see there's some overlap between those problems, but yeah, I guess you are focusing on the first one, which is a scientific idea, a paper, just plus.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool,
totally.
cool.
And I mean, I think that we really want to enable scientists to communicate their research as best they can. And so like we aren't here holding the thing being like, oh, that figure is too complicated, you can't do that, that thing's not complicated enough. It's just like enabling the tools so that authors can make it communicate exactly how they want and tell exactly the story that they want in the way that they want without being limited by the technology.
Thank you, guys. That's very cool.
Thank you.
Cool. Great. So any last questions before we wind things up? No? Great. Okay. Well, we'll leave it there. Again, if there's any questions and things, people can reach out, open issues on the proceedings.
Yeah.
GitHub repo is a great way to
we'll
get...
keep an eye. Any issues you open, you don't even need to tag us. We'll see and we'll get back. And so feel free to ask whatever questions you want.
Great. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Amazing.